Wayward Winston. On the island of Sodor, everyone agrees that it's very important to keep the railway tracks in good and safe condition. But sometimes tracks get damaged. Then they become buckled and bumpy. Thomas was taking the Fat Controller and his family on a visit to Ulfstead Castle when they came to a very bumpy section of track. Soon, workmen started repairing the bumpy track. Each day, the Fat Controller came by in Winston, his inspection car, to see how the work was progressing. The Fat Controller was still not used to driving Winston. As he and the Fat Controller left for the day, Winston was very patient. But Winston could hear the other engines laughing at him as they went past. The next day, the Fat Controller and Winston arrived again to inspect the work on the track. The Fat Controller was always forgetting to put on the brake, and Winston was always having to remind him. The Fat Controller drove on a little further. He stopped again to inspect more repairs. But this time, Winston didn't remind him to put on his brake, and Winston started to roll forward. Winston was having the time of his life. He was rolling down the line all on his own. But Thomas and the Fat Controller weren't far behind. When the signalman saw that Winston had no driver, he tried to switch him off the main line, but he accidentally switched Thomas and the Fat Controller instead. The signalman made an emergency call. The second signalman received the message. He switched Thomas back onto the main line. Meanwhile, Bertie was pulling up to a nearby crossing. He didn't know Winston was coming. Winston came speeding up to a junction. When he saw Paxton up ahead, Winston's signal turned red, but he couldn't stop. Paxton put on his brakes. He stopped just in time. Winston was racing towards Tidmouth Sheds. Then there was trouble. There were trucks ahead, and Winston couldn't stop. Winston was starting to slow down. Slower and slower and slower, until he came to a stop. All the engines were happy when the work on the line was finally finished. The engines all laughed, but Winston didn't mind. He was glad to have the Fat Controller back in the driving seat once again.